Have you ever
Have
wondered
you ever
why the
wondered why the loudest
voices
voices in life often drown out the truth that whispers
In
inside
a
your
world
soul?
addicted to noise,
In a
silence has
world
become a
addicted
foreign
to
language,
noise,
feared
silence has
rather
become a
than
foreign
understood.
language,
Yet,
feared rather
true
than
power
understood.
does
Yet,
not always roar.
true
Sometimes
power does not
it
always
moves in
roar.
stillness, unseen.
Sometimes
Like
it
the
moves
deep
in
current beneath the
stillness,
surface of the
unseen and
ocean, there is
unannounced.
a woman
Like
who
the
learns
deep current
this
beneath
truth
the surface of
hard
the
way.
ocean.
At first, she
There is
moves
a
through
woman
life,
who
chasing
learns this
validation,
truth the
mistaking
hard
constant
way.
motion for progress, mistaking approval
At
for love.
first,
Her days are
she
filled
moves
with
through
voices.
life chasing validation,
Some praising, some
mistaking
criticizing, all
constant
demanding
motion
that
for
she prove
progress,
herself. She
mistaking
measures her
approval
worth
for
by
love.
applause
Her
and
days
attention,
are
by how
filled
many
with voices.
choose her, call
Some
her,
praising,
want her,
some
but
criticizing,
deep within,
all
her
demanding
soul aches
that she
with a
prove
quiet
herself.
question.
She
Who am
measures
I
her worth
when no one
by
is watching?
applause
This
and
is the
attention,
moment Jung
by
would
how many
call
choose
the
her,
invitation
call her,
of the
want
self.
her. But
The
deep within,
archetypal
her
call
soul
to
aches with a
wholeness.
quiet
Buried
question.
beneath the ego's frantic
Who am I when no one is
performances,
watching?
the feminine spirit,
This is the
in its
moment
purest
Jung
essence,
would call
was
the
never meant to
invitation
be
of
loud,
the self.
to be powerful.
The
When a
deep
woman learns to be
archetypal
quiet, not as an act of
call
submission,
to
but as an act of
wholeness,
sovereignty,
buried
she steps into a
beneath
strength
the
that no
ego's
one can
frantic
manipulate.
performances.
You have felt this
The
before,
feminine spirit,
haven't you? That
in its
strange
purest
and
essence,
unsettling moment
was
when
never
you
meant
stopped
to be
answering
loud,
every
to be
message,
powerful.
stopped explaining yourself,
When a woman
stopped
learns to
proving
be
your
quiet,
worth,
not
suddenly
as an
people
act
panicked.
of submission,
They weren't worried about you,
but as an act
they
of
were
sovereignty,
worried about losing
she
control
steps
over
into
you.
a strength
Because when a woman
that no one
embraces
can
quietness,
manipulate.
she breaks the
You have
chains
felt this
of
before,
projection. She is
haven't
no
you?
longer the
That
mirror for
strange and
someone else's
unsettling
ego,
moment
no
when you
longer the
stopped
stage for
answering
someone else's
every
drama.
message, stopped
Quietness
explaining
is
yourself,
not weakness. It is
stopped proving your
discipline.
worth.
It is the refusal to engage every
And
attack,
suddenly,
to justify
people
every
panicked.
decision, to perform
They
for
weren't
people
worried
who have
about
not
you.
earned the right to see your
They were
soul.
worried
Marcus
about
Aurelius
losing
said,
control over
the nearer
you.
a man comes to a calm mind,
Because when
the
a woman
closer he is to
embraces
strength.
quietness,
The same is true of a
she
woman.
breaks
When she
the chains
cultivates
of
stillness,
projection.
her power
She is no
becomes
longer
untouchable.
the mirror for
This
someone
stillness
else's
is not about
ego,
disappearing.
no
It is
longer the
about
stage for
returning
someone
to
else's
yourself.
drama.
It is shadow work
Quietness
in
is
its
not
purest form.
weakness. It is
Confronting the
discipline.
parts of you that feel
It is
unworthy
the
of
refusal
love
to
unless they are
engage
pleasing
every
someone.
attack,
It is
to
about stripping
justify
away the
every
false
decision,
persona,
to
the
perform
masks
for
you wear
people
to survive,
who have not
until only
earned
the
the right
authentic
to
self
see your
remains.
soul.
And that self does
Marcus
not
Aurelius
beg,
said,
does not chase,
the nearer a man
does not
comes to a
scream to be
calm
seen.
mind,
That self
the
simply
closer he is to strength.
Most women have been
The
conditioned to
same is
believe
true of a
that
woman.
love must be
When
earned by
she
effort,
cultivates
by sacrifice,
stillness,
by proving
her
their
power
loyalty.
becomes
But the woman who
untouchable.
understands the theology
This
of
stillness
quietness
is not about
knows that love is
disappearing.
revealed,
It is
not
about
demanded.
returning to
She
yourself.
knows that silence
It is
exposes
shadow work
truth.
in its purest
Watch how
form,
people react when you are no
confronting the
longer
parts of you
accessible on demand.
that
You will
feel
learn everything
unworthy
about
of
who
love
values you and who
unless
merely
they are
uses
pleasing
you.
someone.
The male unconscious
It is
feels
about
this
stripping
shift
away the
before it
false
can begin.
persona,
When a woman stops
the
performing,
masks you
when
wear
she
to
no longer plays
survive,
into ego games,
until
the men around
only
her
the
feel a
authentic
loss of
self
control.
remains.
The insecure man becomes louder,
And that self does not
angrier,
beg,
more desperate
does not
to pull her
chase,
back into the familiar
does not
chaos.
scream to be
But
seen.
the grounded man,
That self
the
simply
man who
is.
has faced his own
Most
shadow,
women
will meet
have
her
been
stillness with
conditioned
respect.
to believe that love must be
Because
earned
he
by
knows
effort,
what it costs to
by
hold such power,
sacrifice,
and you
by proving their loyalty.
have this power
But the
waiting
woman
inside
who
you.
understands the
not
theology
given
of
by beauty,
quietness
money,
knows that
or
love
status.
is revealed.
It is born in the moment you decide you will
not
no longer
demanded.
betray yourself just to
She
be
knows
chosen.
that silence
It is the
exposes
calm that
truth.
comes when you realize
Watch how
not every
people
battle
react
deserves
when
your
you are no
sword. Not
longer
every insult
accessible
deserves your
on
answer.
demand.
Not every man
You
deserves
will
your
learn
energy. The
everything
theology
about
of quietness
who
is not about
values
religion.
you and who
It is about
merely
reverence.
uses you. The
Reverence
male
for yourself.
unconscious feels
Reverence
this shift
for your
before
time,
it can name
your
it.
emotions,
When a
your
woman
divine
stops
worth.
performing,
It is the
when she
sacred
no
pause
longer
between
plays into
stimulus
ego
and
games,
response,
the
where
men
you choose
around her
not from
feel
fear,
a loss of
but from
control.
wisdom. It is the
The
soft
insecure
refusal to
man
let
becomes
anyone pull
louder,
you out of
angrier,
alignment.
more desperate to
Picture her
pull
again.
her back into the
That
familiar
woman who once fought
chaos.
for attention,
But the
now
grounded
walking
man,
through the world like a living
the
secret.
man
She
who
does
has
not explain
faced
herself,
his own shadow,
and yet her presence
will
explains
meet
everything.
her stillness
She does not
with
demand
respect,
respect,
because
and yet
he
it
knows what
follows
it
her like a
costs
shadow.
to hold
She does
such
not
power,
chase
and
love, and yet it finds
have
her
this
because
power
her
waiting
silence has
inside
become
you.
magnetic.
It is
This
not
is what
given
happens when a
by
woman
beauty,
stops
money,
letting the world tell
or
her who she
status.
is and
It
starts
is born in the
remembering it
moment
for
you
herself.
decide
Quietness
you
is
will
not the absence
no
of
longer
voice.
betray yourself
It is the
just to
presence
be
of soul.
chosen. It is the calm that comes when you realize not every battle deserves your sword, not every insult deserves your answer, not every man deserves your energy. The theology of quietness is not about religion. It is about reverence. Reverence for yourself. Reverence for your time, your emotions, your divine worth. It is the sacred pause between stimulus and response, where you choose not from fear, but from wisdom. It is the soft refusal to let anyone pull you out of alignment with your soul. Picture her again, that woman who once fought for attention, now walking through the world like a living secret. She does not explain herself, and yet her presence explains everything. She does not demand respect, and yet it follows her like a shadow. She does not chase love, and yet it finds her, because her silence has become magnetic. This is what happens when a woman stops letting the world tell her who she is and starts remembering it for herself. Quietness is not the absence of voice. It is the presence of soul. The woman who learns the sacred weight of quietness begins to see through the illusions that once controlled her. Every distraction, every false promise, every manipulative voice demanded her attention loses its hold. What once felt urgent now feels irrelevant. She no longer mistakes noise for significance, nor attention for affection. She recognizes that the loudest people are often the most empty, and that true power never feels the need to announce itself. Carl Jung taught that what we refuse to confront within ourselves appears outside of us as fate. The woman who fears her own silence will inevitably attract those who exploit her need to be heard, who feed off her restlessness. But when she embraces that silence, when she integrates her shadow and no longer fears being alone, she breaks the unconscious contract that once bound her to toxic dynamics. You have seen this, haven't you? The moment you stopped arguing, stopped explaining, stopped justifying yourself, the whole energy of the relationship shifted. The manipulator lost his script because you refused to play your part. The narcissist grew frustrated because the stage went dark and you were no longer there to spotlight his ego. This is not passive behavior. This is active mastery. It is control over the self so deep that no one outside of you can provoke it. Stoic philosophy echoes this truth. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." When a woman practices quietness, she becomes untouchable because her emotions are no longer on display to be controlled. She watches instead of reacts. She discerns instead of defends. She chooses instead of chases. This is not withdrawal from life. It is ascension above its petty games. The feminine spirit in her higher form does not scream to be recognized. It radiates from within, making those who approach either rise to meet her energy or retreat in discomfort. And this is the essence of individuation, the becoming of the self that Jung described. It is the moment when a woman no longer seeks her reflection in another man's eyes, but instead polishes the mirror of her own soul until she sees clearly who she has always been. Men sense this shift instinctively. The insecure man who once relied on her need for validation will try to provoke her into breaking her silence. He will question her loyalty, her love, her very identity, because her calm threatens his control. But the man who has faced his own darkness will not fear her stillness. He will honor it. He will understand that a woman who governs herself is not to be manipulated, only respected. This is the woman you are becoming when you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. This is the woman you are when you refuse to let your peace be a bargaining chip in someone else's game. You become like a mountain, unmoved by storms, unshaken by winds. People must rise to your altitude rather than dragging you down to theirs. The theology of quietness is a form of divine self-respect. It is the recognition that not every call must be answered. Not every invitation must be accepted. Not every insult must be avenged. It is the discipline of choosing battles worthy of your soul. It is the art of turning inward rather than scattering yourself outward. Look closely at her now, the woman who once lived to be seen. She no longer performs for applause. She has learned that the deepest applause is the steady beat of her own heart at peace. Her value no longer depends on how someone else treats her, but on how faithfully she treats herself. Her silence has become sacred ground, a temple where only the worthy may enter. And do you feel it stirring inside you? That quiet resolve that no longer fears being misunderstood, that no longer trembles when someone withdraws their attention. That is not arrogance. That is liberation. That is your soul returning to its rightful throne. The world will try to pull you back into its frenzy. People will demand explanations, confessions, emotional performances to prove that you still care. But remember this, you owe no one access to your peace. You owe no one your chaos to make them comfortable. The woman who learns this becomes a force beyond comprehension. And those who once underestimated her will stand in awe, wondering why their power over her has vanished like smoke in the wind. The woman who lives in quiet strength begins to see the world differently. Where others are desperate to be noticed, she has no need to announce herself. Where others fight for a seat at the table, she builds her own. Her stillness becomes a mirror, and those who encounter her are forced to see themselves clearly, sometimes for the first time. This is the hidden power of feminine quietness. It is not passive. It is not retreat. It is presence so profound that it exposes the truth without speaking a word. Jung called it the anima in her divine form, the inner feminine that withdraws from chaos to realign with the self, compelling the masculine to either rise or fall away. You know this feeling, don't you? That shift when you stop seeking permission to exist, when you no longer measure your worth by how much someone else desires you. Suddenly, the energy changes. Those who once overlooked you begin to wonder what you've discovered. Those who tried to control you grow anxious because you no longer dance to their rhythm. Your silence makes them feel the emptiness of their own noise. In modern psychology, this is called self-regulation, the ability to master your inner state so completely that no one else determines how you feel. In Stoic terms, it is the discipline of desire and aversion, not craving what does not belong to you, not fearing what you cannot lose. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is exactly what a woman discovers when she embraces quietness. That peace is her choice, not a gift someone else gives. Love ceases to be a bargain Attention ceases to be her oxygen. She learns that her presence alone is enough, and in that realization, her energy transforms. Watch how people respond when a woman stops over-explaining. Some will accuse her of being cold. Others will call her mysterious. In truth, she has simply reclaimed her boundaries. No longer does she broadcast every thought, every wound, every fear to those who have not earned her trust. Her silence filters out the unworthy without her lifting a finger. The insecure man feels threatened by this. He may try harder to provoke her, to pull her back into the old familiar dance of reaction and defense. He fears her calm because it reveals his own unrest. But the man who is whole, why would it whole, who has met his own shadow, who has faced his own storms, will recognize her stillness for what it is, wisdom. And he will not fear it. He will meet her in that space of quiet respect. This is individuation in action. Jung spoke of it as the process of becoming whole, of withdrawing the projections we cast onto others and integrating our own light and darkness. When a woman stops demanding love from others and begins to embody it within herself, she ceases to live as a fragment. She becomes complete. And completeness is irresistible, not because it begs to be admired, but because it cannot be controlled. You feel this calling, don't you? That subtle but relentless urge to stop explaining yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. That pull to sit in your own company without fear, that hunger to choose rather than be chosen. This is the soul's way of saying, remember who you are. Imagine her now, walking into a room with no need to prove a thing. She does not lower her gaze to avoid attention, nor does she demand it. She simply is, and that isness commands more respect than any performance ever could. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. Her quietness has become her crown. She no longer lives at the mercy of external validation. Compliments no longer inflate her. Criticism no longer diminishes her. She hears both, weighs both, but bows to neither. Her worth has been set in stone by something higher than human opinion. That is the unshakable foundation every woman must find if she is to love freely without losing herself. And you, will you choose that path? Will you allow yourself to become untouchable, not by hardening your heart, but by grounding it so deeply that nothing can uproot it? Will you choose the stillness that terrifies the world because it cannot be manipulated? The theology of quietness teaches this. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You don't have to beg to be valued. When you honor yourself, the right people will honor you, and the wrong ones will remove themselves. The deeper she sinks into her own silence, the more she begins to hear what others cannot. The voice beneath all voices, the quiet knowing of the soul. It is here that illusion falls away. The applause that once thrilled her now feels hollow. The opinions that once wounded her now pass like wind through trees. What matters is no longer how she is perceived, but how she stands before herself. Jung called this descent into the self a confrontation with the unconscious. To choose stillness is to face every shadow the noise kept hidden, the fear of abandonment, the hunger for approval, the terror of being unseen. But in this confrontation, something extraordinary happens. The very things she once tried to silence now become her teachers. The pain reveals its message. The emptiness reveals its treasure. Have you felt this before? That strange calm when you decide not to chase, not to explain, not to beg someone to stay, and instead you let reality speak for itself. That is the first taste of power. It is not domination over another, but dominion over yourself. It is freedom from the chains of reaction. Modern psychology calls this emotional detachment, but it is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the refusal to let another person's chaos determine your peace. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. The same holds for a woman. She is refined by the fires of rejection and misunderstanding until she shines with a brilliance no one can dull." This quiet radiance is the essence of true feminine power. It is not the power to seduce, but to discern. Not the power to demand attention, but to command respect without asking. The woman who has mastered herself needs no audience. She becomes whole, and wholeness is magnetic. Those who are meant for her will come without force. Those who are not will fall away without a fight. Watch what happens when she stops seeking permission to exist. The insecure man grows restless, wondering why his approval no longer holds weight. He becomes louder, desperate to shake her calm. But the man of depth, the one who has fought his own battles in silence, will meet her at this sacred altitude. He will not fear her strength because he has made peace with his own. This is why silence terrifies those who thrive on control. Without your reactions, they cannot script your role. Without your explanations, they cannot twist your words. Without your need to be liked, they cannot sell you false love. Quietness strips away every illusion until only truth remains. You see it now, don't you? The world is full of women exhausted from trying to prove themselves, louder, busier, always performing. But there is another way, the way of stillness, the way of choosing rather than pleading, the way of remembering that your value is not measured by how many people fight for you, but by how faithfully you fight for yourself. This is the theology of quietness, a discipline of the soul. It is not about hiding from life, but meeting it on your terms. It is the calm refusal to betray yourself in the name of love. It is the courage to walk away without slamming the door, to let absence speak louder than words, to let time reveal what people truly are. Picture her now, the woman who no longer lives for applause. She walks through the world carrying her own atmosphere. She does not chase. She does not plead. She does not shout to be seen. Her silence is not emptiness. It is fullness contained. Like a river deep beneath the earth, her power flows unseen yet unstoppable. And you, will you choose this path? Will you allow yourself to be misunderstood, even disliked, if it means being free? Will you learn to sit with your own soul long enough to remember that you are not defined by anyone's love or anyone's leaving? When a woman learns this, she ceases to be a reflection of someone else's ego. She ceases to be a prize to be won or a game to be played. She becomes her own authority. Her energy no longer says, "Choose me." It says, "I choose." The woman who chooses silence as her strength enters a realm where very few can follow. She is no longer ruled by the frantic need to be understood, nor by the fear of being forgotten. She becomes a paradox, soft yet unyielding, still yet unshakable. People feel her presence long before she speaks, and when she finally does, her words carry the weight of someone who no longer wastes them. Jung would describe this as the emergence of the integrated self, the woman who no longer chases fragments of her worth in other people's eyes. Every shadow she once feared, every wound she tried to bury, now lives in harmony within her. She no longer dissounds the parts of herself that seemed unlovable. She has walked through her own darkness and discovered that nothing there can truly destroy her. You have tasted this truth before, haven't you? That moment when you refuse to answer a call, when you declined to argue back, when you chose not to justify your choices to someone who never truly listened. It felt dangerous at first, like holding your breath underwater. But then it became peaceful. You realized that not every voice deserves an answer. Not every accusation deserves a defense. That was not weakness. That was mastery. This is why quiet women are feared and respected in equal measure. The world does not know what to do with someone who is immune to its games. When a woman detaches from external validation, she stops being predictable. She cannot be baited into a fight she didn't choose. She cannot be guilted into staying where her soul no longer belongs. She becomes an enigma, not because she hides, but because she refuses to perform. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." The woman who learns this truth revokes the power of everything that once held her captive. The opinions of others lose their grip. The games of the insecure fall flat. Her peace is hers alone, untouchable. Men feel this shift instinctively. The man who once thrived on her need for reassurance will find himself disarmed. His tactics, anger, guilt, flattery, will no longer work because her worth no longer hangs on his approval. But the man of true character, the one who has also learned to master himself, will not be threatened by her silence. He will be drawn to it. He will see it as a sign of depth, not defiance. This is how a woman separates the worthy from the unworthy without a word. Her quietness becomes a filter. Those who seek to control her will flee in frustration. Those who seek to honor her will step closer with reverence, and she will choose not from fear, not from loneliness, but from strength. Do you feel this awakening inside you? That refusal to waste yourself on those who do not value you? That calm certainty that no attention in the world is worth the price of self-betrayal. This is not pride. It is alignment. It is your soul remembering its own authority. The theology of quietness is not about withdrawing from life. It is about rising above its noise. It is the art of responding rather than reacting, of discerning rather than defending. It is choosing when to speak and when to let your silence say everything. And silence speaks powerfully. It tells the world, I am not desperate. I am not afraid. I am enough without your approval. Picture her now. No longer the woman who tried to prove herself. No longer the woman who poured herself out for scraps of affection. She moves through the world like a living sanctuary, a place of stillness in a culture addicted to noise. She does not ask to be chosen, she chooses, and in doing so, she reclaims the sacred authority of her soul. The final transformation is near, the moment when she no longer just practices quietness, but becomes it. The moment her very presence radiates freedom, detachment, and an unshakable sense of self. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.